When you watch Patlabor, you're clued into the state of the world, it going through big changes thanks to advancements in hypertechnology. When you have new equipment that massively increases efficiency, making construction work easier than ever, you're gonna have some bright ideas for the future of infrastructure. In the world of Patlabor, this ends up being the Babylon project, a project that is referenced time and time again throughout every single entry. Shinji lays out the project clear and concise in the second episode of Early Days. It's more than just an extraordinary construction project to protect the bay from rising sea levels caused by the greenhouse effect. It'll seal off the entire bay area, build giant sluices, and over the course of 50 years, reclaim that land, solving the metro area's land problems in one blow. Because of this project, the number of construction laborers in the capital jumped by a factor of 87. That's a brief description of the project, but there's some history that goes along with it too, as well as many other aspects not touched upon too much by the source material. This video will cover the Babylon project, its past, and everything it entails. With that being said, let's get on with the video. So, as stated before, the Babylon project is a project to combat climate change, seal the Bay Area, and likely take decades until it's fully complete. Little do you know, the Babylon project was not always the Babylon project. It had a few names before it became the Works project we all know and love. It all starts with this thing called the Phoenix Project, a waste landfill project that the Ministry of Construction has been promoting since the early 1980s, only halted due to pushback from the Tokyo metropolitan government. However, Japan would be entering the supercomputer market soon enough, acquiring a new supercomputer which simulated climate change called the Earth Simulator. There, they'd see that climate change could cause unprecedented amounts of damage if it goes ignored. Sea levels could rise up to 10 meters, which would submerge Tokyo and other cities in Japan. In turn, Japan decides to prepare some precautions to combat the effects of climate change, taking the nearly defunct Phoenix Project and turning it into the Neo-Phoenix Project. This project aimed to remodel the Tokyo Bay Area, adding levees and water gates to connect the existing reclaimed lands and reduce damages from storm surges and typhoon floods due to sea level rise. There's also the Tokyo Bay Aqua Line, across Tokyo Bay Road connecting various prefectures, and proposing the possibility of constructing a large embankment across this line. Side note, many other locations like Italy, China, the Netherlands, and Vietnam had their own projects like this too, so it wasn't just Japan. Anyways, laborers were coming onto the scene around this time. They didn't have the hype yet, but they did act as extra muscle for this endeavor. Though in 1995, one of the most important events to ever happen in the Patlabor universe took place: the Tokyo Bay Central Earthquake. This was a large, devastating magnitude 6 earthquake that took the lives of 4,000 Japanese citizens and destroyed over 100,000 homes in the process. The economy as a whole suffered 15 million in losses, being one of the most tragic events to take place. The Neo-Phoenix Project and the Aqualine Project had to be suspended so the damages could be reviewed. The people of Tokyo and Japan as a whole came together to perform reconstruction efforts, which was the biggest volunteering effort of the time, even establishing a Tokyo Bay Reconstruction Effort Institute. Soon they'd find the Mega Float, which was able to withstand the earthquake and took less damage from the following tsunami, which gave them a bright idea. The Neo-Phoenix Project was picked back up, restructured to become the Babylon Project we all know and love. It turned into an earthquake recovery project and a landfill disposal project for all the rubble and debris caused by the disaster. In addition to creating a large levee inherited from the Neo-Phoenix Project plan and reclaim land to prevent flood damage, the project also aimed to construct a large floating city within the bay, creating a new urban center that can withstand flood damage from the storm surges. At the epicenter of this floating city would be the Ark, a template for this floating city concept and the main construction base for all Babylon project affairs. It served as a maintenance base for laborers as well, since they formed the backbone of the reconstruction efforts after the earthquake, and would become the driving force behind the construction as a whole. It was also great for PR as well, at least until it fell apart during the whole Haas debacle. Nonetheless, they still didn't plan on giving up their idea of a floating mega city. They continued to create artificial islands floating across the bay and large dikes that connect both ends of the bay, Kawasaki and Kisarazu. This allowed them to drain the bay and future-proof against rising sea levels. They also had these underground passageways used for the project, one of them being used to transport materials for the Babylon project to an operations tower seen in Shadow and Geofront, another being a repurposed train tunnel seen in the second movie. Another thing to note that along with the dikes that connect Kawasaki and Kisarazu, there are plans to construct an underground highway that runs between these artificial islands. The plan for it was to run under the bay and was done in an attempt to limit the harmful environmental factors that come with, building in, the bay. Kawasaki and Kisarazu in general are described as a strategic point for the Babylon project. Like the gates in the Panama Canal, it's nicknamed the Castle Gate. This name should be familiar to those who have seen TV, as this is where the climax of the first Griffin arc had occurred. Of course, despite all this reconstruction and creation, also came some destruction. Many homes in more rundown locations in Tokyo were demolished to make way for new property. This, along with the possible ecosystem damage done by all the construction in the Bay Area, inspired protests and counter-movements, along with domestic terrorism caused by environmental extremist groups known as Beach House and Home of the Sea. Their utilization of labor to connect their crimes, along with the already growing labor crime due to the mass utilization of labor as a whole, inspired the creation of Special Vehicles Section 2. Another thing to note is that there's a Phase 2 plan to blocking the Tokyo Bay completely, a second levee that connects between Yokosuka and Futsu. Its progress has barely begun, but its work is expected to begin after the completion of the Kawasaki and Kisarazu levees. There were also other works projects in place along with the Babylon project, most notably Tokyo's blueprint for the 21st century, which included these large megastructures being built on the mainland. You'd have the Tokyo GeoCity, a city between 100 and 200 meters underground and composed of several independent units, forming a ring 40 kilometers in diameter in the underground network. It's likely that the large underground caverns found in the construction of this GeoCity would be used for tourism as another world wonder. Then you have the Tower City project, a massive building that planned to reach a full kilometer in height. Not many details are stated about its use, but from what I can tell from the name and its size in comparison to the other surrounding buildings, it might basically be an above-ground version of the Geophone, a metropolis confined to a single structure for business and real estate. Construction had reached about 300 meters, but it was temporarily set back by a fire that broke out. As stated before, the Babylon project will likely be a several-decade-long endeavor, and it's unlikely we'll see its full completion. The progress of this ambitious project depends on the continuity. For the movie timeline in 2002, the first phase of the project had been completed, the dike connecting Kawasaki and Kisarazu being finished. This decreased the usage of labors in the area, although with the Osaka International Airport's expansion project, along with other works projects, the usage of labors away from Tokyo has accelerated. Of course, while dubiously canon, in The Next Generation, the sequel to the second film, it states that the project collapsed, causing a long-term recession. Don't ask me, I don't have any details on what happens or why it happened, that's just The Next Generation for you. However, there's also Easy in the TV timeline. We don't have many details on the state of the Babylon project, but given its more optimistic look in comparison to TNG, perhaps we'll see some meaningful returns. It's set to take place in 2036, so there's no doubt that a substantial amount of progress would be done by this point. We'll just have to see for when it comes out. Either way, that's the end of this video. If you feel like you learned something, then go ahead and like and subscribe. With that being said, I'll be seen.